everybody, welcome back to Food and Finance with Shelley. I am Shelley Nadel. I'm a certified financial planner in Houston, Texas, and this is my kitchen. Thank you for coming to join me for a few minutes. I am an amateur chef. I love to cook, and I love to cook with different ingredients. So my goal here with Food and Finance is to help you make delicious, creative dishes and to make your financial information more digestible. Our goal today is to have a common theme of variety and flexibility. So when you're cooking, you need to be able to be a little flexible when you're cooking. And if you need expert advice, go to someone, go to Food Network, go to NewYorkTimes.com, your favorite chef, and just use an expert when you need them. Same thing with your finance. If you are flexible with your financial situation and your priorities and how you get to your goals, especially as your life evolves and changes, then you're gonna have a stronger, more robust financial plan. And if you need advice, seek that of an expert. Don't go your neighbor down the street. Seek an expert's advice on full service financial planning. Make sure they're a financial advisor or certified financial planner, and you're gonna have a much stronger financial plan. With that, let's get forward and let's talk about today's meals are going to be power bowls. Now, we know the power pose, right? At least the ladies probably do. Power bowls are a great way to have lots of variety in your diet, and it's all very simple. It's just basically layers of different types of foods, vegetables, carbs like brown rice, some meat or some protein of some kind, some sauce or spices, and literally the combinations are endless. It is gonna be a delicious vegetarian power bowl made up of butternut squash, made up with kale and onions and all these great vegetables and flavors. Add some almonds and cranberries toward the end. Gonna be delicious and really healthy. And like everything else we do, you can modify it the way you want to fit your own palate. Just like you can modify your financial plan, it's for you and you only, and it doesn't have to be like anyone else's. Well, and I don't know if you've ever used quinoa before. It's these little bitty things there. And the first thing I did with the quinoa is I rinsed it. And so I use a strainer like this to rinse it, something with very fine holes so it doesn't slip through. All right, so this is a cup of quinoa that's been rinsed. I'm gonna put that in. This is my first hack of the day. So it says 1.25 cups of water, but why not add flavor? Water's boring. So I've got some vegetable broth that works exactly the same. And so I'm going to pour it in here and then I'm gonna turn it on the stove. And we will get our quinoa cooking, which takes about 15 minutes to cook. Now let's get the butternut squash going. So butternut squash, this looks like a kind of a decapitated butternut squash, sorry. But it's a wonderful fresh squash. You don't have to scoop out the seeds or anything in it, so it's a little easier to use. And what we're gonna do is we're cutting up about 1 pound of squash. We'll cut up part of it into these little cubes like this. So let me show you how I cut the rest of it, all right? So I cut it in half, and by the way, this is a little bit hard. It's a tougher cut, and so you're going to need to make sure you have strong arms and a good knife. So I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna cut the rind. I'm gonna go around, keep your fingers away, okay? I'm gonna cut all that. Butternut squash has this wonderful nutty taste to it, and it's a little naturally sweet. So it's a great vegetable. And we're gonna put this in our garbage bowl. Remember, we always have our garbage bowl with us to put out to the compost pile. I'm going to cut it like this. Okay, I'm gonna be careful here. Now, actually, what I really should be doing is folding my fingers like this. So these are fresh ingredients, right? We're gonna be using some kale later on, and I don't know where you live. I don't know if you have a lot of farmers markets, but I have a ton of farmers markets available. And I love to get fresh vegetables in season whenever I can. So we talked about cooking and having fresh, distinctive ingredients. Now let's talk about in your financial world. You want to be open to different solutions and things that you may not know about before you talk to your advisor, but at the same time, keep it simple. All the power bowls we've been doing have been about simple and about comfort. And in your financial plan, you can keep it simple. So I'd like to tell you a story about a couple that I worked with. And she used to work for an oil and gas company. She was a geologist. And I met her when she and her husband were planning for him to go from Texas to Ohio to go to school to get a master's degree. And she, was independent, had a good salary. She had one question. She wanted to know if she could go with her husband, if she could afford to leave her oil and gas job, they pay quite well, and go to Ohio to be with her husband. And you know, she didn't want to know the best performing stocks or any of that stuff. She had a very simple planning question. I got to call her up a week later after we had looked at the numbers and done all the calculations, and I got to call and say, guess what? Christy, pack your bags, you're going to Ohio with your husband. Now I gotta tell you, I almost cried just thinking about that today. The power of planning for her, all she needed to know was that she was gonna be okay financially if she went with her husband. So that's just an example. We kept it really simple with her. So you can hear my quinoa boiling on the side of the stove here. I'm gonna turn that heat down because it looks like it's cooking really fast. I need to melt a bunch of butter, okay? It's pretty good, huh? I love butter. What we're gonna do, we're gonna melt this for about 3 minutes, and we wanna stir it, and we wanna get it just when it turns a little nutty brown. And so this is called browning butter. And this is one of those things we've had to pay attention, okay? Just like I want you to pay attention to your finances. Notice the little holes? That's what you see also when you're doing rice or any other kind of grain, and those holes are the hot air pockets coming out. So when it starts to do those holes, it's pretty much close to being done. Okay, so our butter is melted, and we are just gonna let it heat a little bit. Remember, we're gonna try to get it to that brown place, and so don't let me stop paying attention to it or I'm talking to you, okay? Until you must stop. It's important, all right? I tend to get a little distracted sometimes. I get really excited about cooking and learning how to cook new things, and I get really excited about helping people be more in control of their money. All right, I think our quinoa is actually done. So I'm actually going to turn it off, and see it's got a little bit of a, kind of a porridge feel to it, okay? Butter is almost ready. So you notice now it's getting foamy. This is the next phase. And then we're gonna slice an onion. Now, I know that in some other lessons I've diced onions before. We're not gonna dice these, we're gonna slice them. So I'm just slicing them like this. So just to put your fingers like this, it's a hard habit to develop, but it's better than chopping your fingers off, right? So, all right, I got some onion already here. All right, we now have, notice the edges are getting a little brown, so I am going to turn that down. So let's toss our onion in. Okay, I just look what looks good to me. I'm gonna saute them in the butter, so it's absorbing all that lovely brown butter, that nutty flavor. And they're gonna get soft, but I don't need to do them very long because these are gonna actually cook down for about 12 minutes. So I'm gonna put my squash in now. All right, and I'm gonna mix it with the onions and the butter. And I'm gonna stir these occasionally. Now the only thing left I have to put in here is I'm gonna add some garlic. As those of you who know me, it's my favorite subject, garlic. Do this, and some of you may have seen this hack before, which is my little grater, this thing. So I'm going to grate the garlic. Now here's something really important. I've been teaching you hacks along the way. I've taught you the vegetable broth instead of water to add some flavor. I'm teaching you this, the microblading, to get grated garlic rather than chopping it really, really tiny. But this is really important, everyone. Don't do hacks when it comes to your financial planning. Okay? You don't want to take shortcuts. You don't want to take what's easy necessarily. You want to take what makes sense and based on the advice of a trusted financial advisor. Okay? You want a financial advisor that looks after your best interests. It's what we call in our industry a fiduciary. Fancy name for someone that's got to put your needs first. Okay? Now look what happens with that garlic. It's amazing to smell. If you really want garlic smell, and I love garlic smell, this is a great way to do it. And it also means no one's gonna have a chunk of garlic in their mouth. This is going to cook, and when we come back, I'm gonna show you how to make the sauce for this with some really interesting ingredients that I'm guessing maybe some you haven't used before. So now we're going to make our sauce for this delicious squash. All right, I know I keep telling you this, but you just, you sniff and it's just, oh my goodness. Oh, okay, all right, I'm very excited. So we're gonna make the sauce with a couple of ingredients that I'm guessing you probably haven't ever used before. This is what's called tahini, and it's a paste, and it is used in a lot of Middle Eastern food. So if you have ever had hummus, you've probably had some tahini in there. So anyway, I'm stirring it up here. It's very oily. Before I stirred it, the oil had separated the top, kind of like when you get natural peanut butter. So you gotta stir it, and of course, when you do this, you know it can get messy. So I'm actually very impressed with myself that I haven't spilled half of it on my arm. So, all right, I'm gonna just pour in a 1/4 cup. Oh, let's see, it's a little chunky there. We're gonna stir it up. Okay, that's about a 1/4 cup. And see, look how it drips on the sides. And let me just make that real smooth in there. So, to that, I'm going to add some lemon juice. It's the juice of about one lemon, half a lemon to a lemon. So I'm gonna add that in. I'm gonna add in a little bit of salt. So I've got my sea salt that I use. Let me throw that in there. And I'm going to add a little bit of honey. Just adds that little bit of sweetness to counteract the sour lemon. Just about a tablespoon. And I'm not measuring it. I could, but honestly, it's just you're gonna make this to your taste. So I'm gonna add a little bit of water. So I'm gonna add about a tablespoon of water. So for this, I will measure. Just a tablespoon. I've got a tablespoon of water right here. I'm gonna add that in, because you want this to be kind of like a salad dressing almost. It's a thin sauce. And so you can hear that kind of getting a little squishy, still a little bit thick in my mind, so I'm gonna add another half tablespoon. So now, let's turn back to our squash. Let me taste it. It's really good. It's cooked, but it's got a little bit of crunch to it. I mean, there's a little bit of thickness to it. It's not totally mushy, which you don't want it really mushy, right? All we have to do now is we're going to add some kale. Now, it's really important in these kind of things. I like to go to farmers markets and get fresh ingredients. So whenever you can do that, you want to do that. And if not, make sure if you have a chance to get organic, get organic. So I'm going to cut this kale. I got to keep my fingers from getting chopped off. I'm having so much fun talking to you guys that I need to pay attention when I'm chopping. So I'm going to add the rest of this kale here into the butternut squash mixture, and I'm going to stir it around. I'm turn the heat up a little bit, and the kale is going to cook for about another 2 minutes or so. And I'm actually going to put a little bit of water in here because I feel like there's not enough liquid, so I'm going to add it in just to kind of give it a little bit of extra steaming. This is the last bit before we assemble. Remember, don't waste stuff. So I'm not going to waste this. Sometimes you can make vegetable broth with the stems here too. So it just depends on how creative and how ingenious you are, what you want to do with it. Same way financially, don't waste free money. What am I talking about? I'm talking about retirement plans. So for those of you that work for companies, you have access to a retirement plan, most of you will. And if you do, some companies are going to do what's called a match. And what that match does is if you contribute money to your retirement account, they're going to contribute money to your retirement account. It's a basic incentive program to get you to save for retirement. And the match is usually somewhere between 3 and 6%. It depends, there's some rules about it, but so let's just say it's 3%. And that's free money. So how many of you listening to this program and whose stomachs are grumbling, can't wait to eat this delicious food, would walk away if you're walking down the street and a $10 bill or a $5 bill was on the sidewalk? You're not gonna walk away from that. It's free money, right? Never ever give up the match. Whatever you have to do, figure it out so that you can contribute at least up to the match. All right, after that, you need to talk to your financial advisor about where they recommend you put the rest of your money, okay? But don't give up free money and don't waste food. Now look how beautiful this is, guys. Look at that. The greens, the yellows, the white onions. I mean, that is gorgeous. It's like a work of art. However, we are gonna eat it. So even though it's art, we're gonna eat it. Now it's time to assemble our bowl. Our squash is done, our quinoa is done, and I tasted the quinoa earlier, and it has just enough flavor with the vegetable broth. And like I said, you can add garlic, you can add ginger, anything you want. You also can use something besides quinoa, because this is your power bowl, it's your jigsaw puzzle. You can put it together however you want. So we're gonna grab this. Again, this is a cool handle, that's why I'm not using a mitt, okay? And I'm going to take this spoon, and I'm going to spoon some quinoa, make sure you can see that, some quinoa into the bottom layer. And then we are going to add some squash. I'm gonna bring this over like this. I'm gonna layer it. The onions almost look like cheese. Maybe you wanna put some salmon. Some really delicious cooked salmon would be excellent on something like this. So you could get some tofu and marinate it and cook it. Really, it doesn't matter. You can put any protein you want. Now we're gonna add the last two ingredients. We're going to add some almonds. Now the recipe called for chopped pecans. I'm a very weird Texan. I don't like pecans. So I like almonds. I got almonds. It's my salad, it's my Powerball. And then I'm gonna add some cranberries. I'm going to drizzle some sauce over it like this. I'm gonna mix all that up. So look, you added the color. You had the yellow and the green and the white. Now you've got the red and the brown tinted almonds. So really, it's amazing. Powerballs are layers of good, natural, healthy food layered on top of each other, and they are designed to be a meal in one bowl. Remember, we're gonna think about your jigsaw puzzle as being a whole bunch of scattered pieces that we put together. So this was a whole bunch of scattered pieces of food that had no relation to each other, and we put them together and they're fabulous. Same thing with your financial plan. You've probably, if you're like any one of us, you've got pieces kind of scattered in different places, different jobs, different states. And what financial planning does is help put those pieces together into a coherent strategy with protection and opportunity for growth. We would love to have your feedback on this session. If you're watching this on YouTube, please just comment and then click on the link to go to foodandfinancewithshelley.com. Very excited. On that site, you're gonna see more videos there. You're gonna see the recipes. If you would like to have a chat with me about any kind of financial questions or concerns you have, there will be a link on the foodandfinancewithshelley.com website to get you to my business page, and there you can reach out to us and let us know. I'd be happy to chat with you. I can't wait to dig into these. Let me taste them. This has got all the layers, the quinoa and the cranberry and the squash and the kale, everything, all those beautiful colors. It's so good. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you got some good cooking tips. I hope you got some good financial tips. And both of those sets of tips give you more comfort in your gut and with your financial plan. Loved having you, and we look forward to seeing you again really soon. Take care. Oh man, that was really good. The honey and tahini, I highly recommend adding some honey. It's almost like peanut butter.